214 cherry tomatoes. That is what one plant gave me last summer, growing on my apartment balcony in a plain white 5-gallon bucket that used to hold paint. I know the number because I kept a tally on a sticky note next to the kitchen sink, and by September that sticky note looked like a prisoner counting days on a cell wall. I don't have a yard, I don't have raised beds, and I certainly don't have a greenhouse. One bucket, one plant, and a balcony that gets decent afternoon sun. Now, my first try at tomatoes, 2 summers before that, gave me exactly 4 tomatoes the entire season, and 3 of those 4 had ugly black leathery bottoms I had to cut off. Same balcony, same sun, same guy. What changed between 4 tomatoes and 214 was a handful of small, cheap adjustments, and the most important one of all costs nothing. Stay with me to the end, because that one is something I do in late summer with a pair of kitchen scissors that feels flat out wrong. I cut the top of my tomato plant clean off, and the reason it works comes down to one specific thing a tomato plant does with its sugar that nobody ever explains. I'm Jake, though most folks around here know me as Backyard Buddy. 3 years ago, I was the guy who killed houseplants. I once killed a cactus, which takes real commitment. Then, a bunch of green onion ends I tossed at the trash can missed, landed in a glass of water on the counter, and sprouted, and I've been growing food on my windowsills and balcony ever since. My grocery bill is down by nearly a third. My neighbor Gloria, a retired school teacher 2 floors up, has been growing tomatoes in 5-gallon buckets on her balcony for 20 years. Half of what you're about to hear, Gloria taught me. Now, if you have ever tried tomatoes in a pot and ended up with a sad, scraggly plant and 3 tomatoes the size of marbles, I want you to hear this. It was not your thumb. Almost every container tomato that disappoints fails for the same 3 reasons. The pot was too small, the watering was up and down, or the plant was the wrong kind of tomato for a pot in the first place. That's it, those 3. And every one of them is cheap and easy to fix. Here is what that failure actually costs, by the way. A whole summer of carrying the watering can, and meanwhile, a little pint of cherry tomatoes at the grocery store is running $4 or $5, and a good slicing tomato in August can cost more per pound than chicken. One healthy plant in one 5-gallon bucket can hand you $40, $50 of tomatoes in a season. My 214 cherry tomatoes worked out to somewhere north of $60 of produce, off a plant that cost me about $4 to start. So today I'm going to walk you through the whole season, start to finish, one step at a time, the same way Gloria walked me through it. And keep those late summer scissors in the back of your mind, because everything we do today is building toward that one cut. Now, tomatoes are one of my favorite comeback stories, because you can even start them from a slice of a store-bought tomato, and that trick has its own page in a book I put together called The 30-Day Kitchen Scrap Garden Protocol. 0 waste, 0 experience, free food. It is the complete 30-day plan for turning the scraps your kitchen already throws away into growing food. And I wrote it for absolute beginners with no yard, no experience, and next to no budget in the same walk-you-through-it style I use right here. It covers 31 crops you can regrow from scraps, each with its own plain instructions. It includes the $10 starter kit, gathered mostly from things you already own. It has the full day-by-day plan from your first glass of water to your first harvests and troubleshooting for when a scrap sulks on you. It is 172 pages, and right now it is $17, marked down from $47. $17 one time against a grocery bill that drops every single week after. Mine dropped by nearly a third. Now go ahead and grab your phone and open up your camera, the same one you use to take pictures. Point it at that square code on your screen and hold it steady for a second. A little link will pop up, give it a tap, and it will take you straight to the book. And if you are watching on your phone right now, the link is waiting for you right down below in the description. Take your time, there is no rush at all. I'll wait right here. All right, buddy, back to the balcony. Step 1 happens before you ever touch soil, and it decides more than any other step. Step 1. Pick a tomato that actually wants to live in a container. And this was my first summer mistake. I bought a giant beefsteak variety because I had visions of hamburger-sized slices, and I stuffed it into a pot the size of a flower vase. That poor plant never had a chance. For containers, the sweet spot is cherry tomatoes and the smaller patio and bush types. Cherry tomatoes are generous, they ripen fast, and they forgive a beginner. Now, when you're at the garden center reading those little plastic tags, you'll see two words, determinate and indeterminate. Plain English, a determinate tomato is a plant with a finish line. It grows to a set size, gives you one big wave of fruit over a few weeks, and winds down. An indeterminate tomato is a vine with no finish line. It keeps climbing and keeps flowering until frost stops it. My 214 came off an indeterminate cherry tomato. If you want the biggest total harvest, that vining type is your friend, and that vining habit is exactly why the scissors trick at the end of this video exists. So hold that thought. Step 2. The bucket. This is where Gloria saved me real money. You do not need a fancy $40 ceramic planter. You need volume. A tomato is a big, thirsty, hungry plant, and its roots need room. The magic number is 5 gallons. That is 5 gallons minimum, not the 2-gallon pot from the houseplant aisle. A 5-gallon bucket is perfect. And here's the thrifty part. Bakeries, delis, and restaurant supply stores go through food-grade buckets constantly. Frosting buckets, pickle buckets, and plenty of them will hand you one for free or for $1 if you just ask nicely at the counter. One rule: only use a bucket that held food. Never plant in a bucket that held chemicals or paint, and yes, my white paint bucket was actually a food-grade bucket that looked the part. Once you have your bucket, flip it over and drill 5 drainage holes in the bottom, each about ½ an inch wide. 5 holes, ½ an inch. Take your time with the drill, there's no rush. A tomato sitting in a bucket with no drainage is a tomato sitting in a bathtub, and the roots will rot before you ever taste a thing. Step 3. What goes in the bucket? And here's where most folks go wrong on day 1. Do not fill your container with dirt dug up from the ground, even good-looking dirt. Out in a garden bed, that soil has worms and bugs and freeze cycles keeping it loose. Trapped in a bucket, it packs down like a brick, water can't move through it, and roots can't breathe. What you want is a bag of regular potting mix from the garden center. Potting mix is that light, fluffy stuff made to do 2 jobs at once, drain fast and hold moisture. A 5-gallon bucket takes most of a big bag, and a big bag runs $8 to $12. That's the single biggest expense of this whole project, and it's still less than 3 pints of store cherry tomatoes. Step 4. Planting day, and this is my favorite part because it feels completely wrong the first time you do it. Gloria taught me this one, standing over my shoulder on my own balcony. You take your young tomato plant, maybe 10 or 12 inches tall. You pinch off all the leaves on the bottom 2/3 of the stem. Then you bury the plant deep so that 2/3 of that stem is underground and only the top leafy third is sticking out. The first time Gloria told me to do it, I thought she was pulling my leg. "You're going to drown it," I said. But look closely at a tomato stem sometime. It's covered in fine little fuzzy hairs, thousands of them. Every one of those hairs, once it's underground, turns into a root. You read that right. The whole buried stem becomes root. So while a shallow-planted tomato is sipping through a straw all summer, your deep-planted tomato is drinking through a fire hose, with a root system twice the size, pulling twice the water and twice the food. Bigger roots, bigger plant, bigger harvest. It's that direct. Water it in gently until water runs out those drainage holes, and day 1 is done. Step 5. Where the bucket lives. Tomatoes are sun animals. They want 6 to 8 hours of direct sun a day, and 6 hours is the floor, not the suggestion. That is 6 full hours. Here's the nice thing about growing in a bucket instead of the ground. Your garden has wheels, or at least handles. If your balcony only gets morning sun on one end and afternoon sun on the other, you can scoot the bucket. Spend one Saturday just noticing where the sun lands on your space: morning, noon, and late afternoon. Put the bucket in the winter. South-facing is usually the jackpot in most of the country. My balcony faces southwest, and that one lucky fact does a lot of my work for me. Step 6, watering. Stay with me here, because this step is the difference between my 4 ugly tomatoes and my 214, and it explains those black leathery bottoms from my first summer. That black patch on the bottom of a tomato is called blossom end rot, and for a whole year I assumed my soil was bad or my plant was diseased. It's neither. That black bottom happens when the plant can't move calcium into the fruit, and calcium only travels through the plant one way, riding along with water. So when your watering swings between bone dry and soaking wet, the calcium delivery keeps stopping and starting, and the bottom of the fruit starves and turns black. The soil can be full of calcium, and it still happens. The fix is not more water. The fix is steady water. Here's the routine. Every morning, push your finger into the soil down to your second knuckle, about 2 inches. 2 inches, right by the stem. If it feels dry at your fingertip, water. If it still feels damp, walk away. When you do water, water slowly until you see it run out the drainage holes at the bottom, then stop. In the heat of July and August, a big plant in a bucket will likely want that drink every single day, sometimes morning and evening on the 100-degree days. That sounds like a chore, and it's really a 2-minute habit with your morning coffee. Steady, boring, consistent water. Boring is what tomatoes love. And remember those late summer scissors I promised you. The reason that cut works is tied to this same plumbing system, and we are getting closer. Step 7. Feeding. A tomato in the ground can send roots out hunting for dinner. A tomato in a bucket eats only what you serve it, and every time you water until it drains, a little nutrition washes out those holes in the bottom. So bucket tomatoes need feeding on a schedule. Pick up a basic tomato fertilizer at the garden center, the kind labeled for tomatoes or vegetables, usually $6 to $10 for a container that lasts all season. Follow the label amounts. Feed every 2 weeks once you see the first flowers. Every 2 weeks, that's the rhythm. Mark it on the kitchen calendar like I do, little red tea every other Sunday. Skip the feeding and the plant survives, but it makes leaves instead of fruit, and we're not here for a salad of leaves. Step 8. Support and put it in on planting day, not later. A tomato plant loaded with fruit is heavier than it looks, and a bucket plant catches balcony wind like a sail. Push a sturdy stake into the bucket or set a wire tomato cage over the plant the same day you plant. If you wait until the plant flops, you'll be threading branches through wire and snapping stems, and I say that as a man who has snapped them. As the vine grows, tie the main stem loosely to the stake every 8 inches or so with strips of an old t-shirt. Soft ties, loose loops. The plant should be held, not strangled. Step 9. Pinching suckers. This one sounds like surgery and takes 5 seconds. Look at your tomato plant where a leafy branch meets the main stem. Right in that armpit, at a 45-degree angle, a little new shoot will appear. That shoot is called a sucker, and the name is honest because it grows into a whole new stem that sucks energy from the rest of the plant. On a farm with endless sun, you might let them all grow. In a bucket on a balcony, you want 1 or 2 main stems, period. So once or twice a week, walk the plant, and when you see a sucker smaller than your pinky, pinch it off with your fingers. 1 pinch per armpit. If you miss a few, no harm done. You cannot really mess this up. Fewer stems means the plant pours everything into fewer, bigger, better tomatoes. And that idea, pointing the plant's energy where you want it, is the exact idea behind the big finale. One more step first. Step 10. Picking and Gloria's counter trick. Most of us wait for a tomato to turn fully red on the vine because that feels like the whole point. Gloria picks hers at first blush, the moment the fruit shows its first real flush of pink or orange, and lets them finish ripening in a bowl on the kitchen counter. Here's why that's not cheating. Once a tomato starts turning color, it has everything it needs, and it will ripen off the vine to the very same flavor. Meanwhile, every ripe fruit you take off the plant is a signal, and the plant answers by pushing out more flowers and more fruit. Pick early and often, and the plant keeps producing. Leave everything hanging until dead red, and it slows down. Her windowsill in July looks like a farm stand, and now mine does too. And now, the part I've been promising since the first minute. The scissors. Every year, sometime in late summer, I stand on my balcony, take a clean pair of kitchen scissors, and cut the entire top off my tomato plant. The growing tip, the newest flowers, the whole works, snipped off just above the highest cluster of fruit I want to keep. The first time Gloria did it to my plant, I about grabbed her arm. It looks like vandalism. It is the single best thing you can do for your harvest, and here is the mechanism nobody explains. Remember, an indeterminate tomato is a vine with no finish line. It never stops trying to climb, and it never stops making new flowers right up until frost kills it. But every flower it makes in late August is a promise it cannot keep. A flower needs 6, 7, 8 weeks to become a ripe tomato, and the calendar has run out. Now think about where the plant's energy goes. Every leaf on that plant is making sugar all day long, and the plant divides that sugar among every growing tip, every new flower, and every green fruit, the hopeless ones included. So a third of your plant's sugar, sometimes more, is being spent on tomatoes that will never, ever ripen. When you cut the top off, you cancel the bad promises. The plant can't grow taller. It can't make new flowers. All that sugar suddenly has exactly one place left to go, straight into the fruit already hanging on the vine. Those tomatoes swell, and they ripen weeks faster. Timing matters, so here it is twice. Count back about 4 weeks from your area's first fall frost, and that's your cutting week. About 4 weeks before frost. For me, that's early September. The year I learned this, that one cut turned about 40 green marbles into 40 ripe tomatoes by the first week of October. Tomatoes that every previous year had gone into the trash, still green. One free cut. That's the difference between a good season and a 214 tomato season. And that's the whole idea, buddy. One plant, a few small moves, and a bucket that pays you back all summer long. The book walks you through 31 crops the exact same way, day by day for 30 days, starting with scraps that are sitting in your kitchen tonight. It's called the 30-Day Kitchen Scrap Garden Protocol. It's $17, marked down from $47, one time, for a grocery bill that gets a little smaller every single week. If I can do this, I promise you can. Now go ahead and grab your phone and open up your camera, the same one you use to take pictures. Point it at that square code on your screen and hold it steady for a second. A little link will pop up, give it a tap, and it will take you straight to the book. And if you are watching on your phone right now, the link is waiting for you right down below in the description. Take your time, there is no rush at all. I'll wait right here. So that's the season in one breath. The right plant, a 5-gallon bucket, real potting mix, planted deep, 6 hours of sun, steady water, food every 2 weeks, and one brave cut 4 weeks before frost. Tell me in the comments the first scrap you're going to regrow or the one you've already got going on the windowsill. I read every single one. Next time, I'm going to show you the $2 bunch of celery that has been handing me free stalks since March and the 1 inch of water that decides whether it thrives or rots on you. Don't throw it away, grow it. I'll see you next time, buddy.